Welcome to Resilience Development in Action with Steve Bisson. This is the podcast dedicated to first responder mental health, helping police, fire, EMS, dispatchers, and paramedics create better growth environments for themselves and their teams. Let's get started.
Hi, and welcome again to Resilience Development in Action. And just like this, we're back, me and Eric Robinson, who has been worked as a pastor, worked as an FBI agent. We've been talking about that. Go back to the first episode, because that was, to me, very fun to talk about that transition, as well as the underbelly of the world and how to deal with humans in general. The only thing I forgot to say in the first episode is I hear that FBI agents work on computers. They don't actually work on people. But anyway, that's just something I've heard from.
Yes. So like the joke is the bad guys are in here somewhere. I just have to find them.
And if you guys are just listening, he actually, I go on the video, but he was actually pretending to type. So I want to make sure you guys know what he was doing. But, you know, one of the things that I worry about from all my guys I work with, and even with my guests who've been on, former first responders in general, police, among others, is having their life threatened. And, you know, this is not like people like, oh, yeah, well, you live in a small town USA. Listen, I've heard of small town USA still having a gun pulled on them.
Oh, yeah.
As an FBI agent, you probably have encountered that at least a couple of times, right? So how do you deal with these constant threats? Because it's not fun. We talked a little bit about the fun part of helping a kid go home at 10:30 at night, but now we're talking about the harder part of your life is in danger.
Yeah. And when being on the SWAT team, we were doing what other agents do, going to make an arrest, clear a house for a search warrant. But SWAT was called when the threat level was higher. So we had a few more tools, a lot more training, different vehicles. And so now SWAT comes, but we're coming for the guys who are more likely to bring violence. But every single time we roll up on a house, you don't know if this person is going to oppose you violently. Most of the time, by far, they come out hands up, because when you have that huge show of force, guy looks out his window, and we'd seen this multiple times. You know, he sees 15 guys, ballistic rated Bearcat, rifles with lasers pointed in windows. It cuts down his options. Like the option is die or come out. And so most guys, and then we found as we go in right by that window, there was a handgun. You know, he thought, let's see what's here. And no. So each time there was a threat, but especially on SWAT, having gone through that training so often and feeling proficient myself, knowing that I was very competent, and then seeing the guys next to me perform in the same way, going in real world situations, handling themselves well, they were at least as good as I was. That made for the event where we rolled up on a house where I had no fear. It was just calm. My only thought process was, what's my assignment, and do I have the equipment necessary to carry it out, which allows for the highest level of performance. Because if there's not something in the back of my mind of, oh man, got to be careful, watch out for this, I can just look straight ahead to see what's there. So that made for a more comfortable environment for me, where I felt like we were going to be successful. It might have been a bit of naivete, a bit of a survivorship bias, where every time I'm safe, so of course I'll be safe this time. But we went through that. And then I'll show you this. We had one time where we had a guy subject who had mental health problems, had assaulted police, was trading in child pornography, which the Bureau had kind of raised the threat level on these guys. And as we hit the house, my buddy on the corner, it was three of us covering the back and the side of the house, called out, drop the bat. And going through this situation, as he deliberately came towards us with a bat, our deadly force policy says we can employ deadly force if there is an imminent threat of death or serious bodily harm to ourselves or others. So there was a certain point where our retreating had to stop. as we gave him every opportunity to surrender. And then his last words as he charged with the bat was kill me. So we knew what his intent was. But I look back after that day, and I'll show you this, looked at my Garmin watch, and you can tell me the minute we
Yeah.
got into a shooting.
Yeah.
So my heart rate, hey, we're active. I'm carrying equipment, so it's up a little bit. And then it spikes to 178 beats a minute.
Right.
And then it comes down. Yeah, I mean, immediately. So we wouldn't be talking if it spiked to 178 and then plateaued for more than a minute or two.
No, we wouldn't be talking.
Because you can't handle that. But the body said, you need some energy. There's a threat. I'm going to give it to you. And then the mind said, okay, the threat is no longer, let's bring it back to work. And I came right back down to that normal activity level of a heart rate. But what was crazy about that too, and I know people talk about it, but I talked to my buddy after everything was done. And I said, how long do you think that was? That was my first thought, is like, everybody talks about this. I said, how long do you think that was? And he says, probably about 5 minutes. And I go, right. That's what it felt like to me. I bet it's much shorter. It was a fucking minute and a half.
I believe it.
And I can tell you everything that went on during that time, to the point where when he charged, I came offline with a flashbang to clear the line of fire for my buddies. And I threw it at him to see if that might hinder him. And he went down when I threw it. And I thought, that's weird. And my mind started processing the events so quickly. And I went, oh, no, wait, those were gunshots as well. They were at the same time as a flashbang. And I'm paused, and you can see it on our body cams. And then, now I've got to secure him, because I don't know if he's got a gun in his waistband or what, so boom, on top of him. So all of that, and we can talk about the processing of that too, if you want.
Well, it's up to you, but that suicide by cop stuff is something that is not really talked about a whole lot. And when it does occur, it just affects officers probably more than they let on, because no one wants to take a life like that.
No, and we gave him like far more. My buddy who pulled the trigger was like, we let him go too far, which is just natural. Like, hey, it's a bat. My life isn't threatened yet. Come on, kid. Stop it. And then the final gift he gave us, as guys are quickly in there, working on him and rendering aid immediately, was that he had AIDS. So, now everybody's going to, full of blood, getting tested afterwards. But our process afterwards, I thought, was so well done. We had a close-knit SWAT team. Our team leader, Ben, is a great leader. And I don't know if he thought this through, but he had been planning ahead of time, talking to other TLs whose teams had been in shooting. So he was getting ready for the inevitable. And we had a great employee assistance leader and chaplain come in, and we do after-action reviews for every operation, just normal.
Right.
And so we sit down, everybody's there, and we go around the room with the chaplain and EAP Kristen there. And it wasn't a mandatory, hey, go meet with a therapist, go talk about it. It was an after-action review. And everybody went around and just told what role they had and maybe what thoughts they had. And naturally, feelings are coming out too. And, how this experience was for them. And I remember that the night of the shooting, I didn't feel bad. The kid forced us. I felt like, wish he hadn't done that, but I didn't feel regret, like, oh man, shouldn't take a life. Like, he forced it. But that night I couldn't sleep, because my mind kept replaying it to see if we could do this again. But this time, get the bat away from him. Like, it just kept going through. It's like, let's try this one more time, until I finally just sat up and thought, stop doing this, just let it go. That did happen. It's not going to get resolved. It's done.
If I had a dime for every time I've talked to someone who told me, like, I did what I had to do, but that doesn't mean the tape replayed in my head.
Right.
And the common words, and this is what I work on. I'm not going to do therapy with you, but that's
I
what
don't
I'm
mind. I don't
doing.
mind.
It's that what if.
Yeah.
And I tell people that conditional will never help you because
No.
what if, like I have like a page of notes since we started talking. And there's like, oh, I should go back. Oh, what if I went back? I'm like, I have what ifs every day. This was more of a human life. I understand it's a little heavy.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong. But the what ifs will never serve you because it's not going to change what happened. And you need to stay in the present. We talk a little bit about that before we got on, but
Yeah.
being able to stay in the moment and having to say you made the best decision with the tools you had at the time is really the key because it's as much as people who may not get it, and I certainly have never done that, so I'm not going to pretend I do. I do know also that sometimes being in the moment, you'll say stuff, or in this particular situation, do something, and you're going to question yourself no matter what. And that's just how it is. It just can't be married to that what if.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting about this is I was not asking what if. My mind was. I wasn't saying to myself, we could have done this different. I absolutely did not. But my spirit was forcing that out of of you want to have not done this. You're not you're not sad about it, you're not shameful of it, but you want to not have had to do this. And I'm going to draw that out until it's addressed.
Right. And I think that that's just natural because one of the things that, you know, you can shoot someone anytime you want for regular reasons or not, and for justified reasons or not. But I tell people, like, it's not natural. We're not made as human beings to take away people's lives. We're not. You can play all the video games you want. You can play GTA and Fortnite all you want. It's not natural for humans to do that. And it just plays with your psyche. So, like you said, maybe you weren't consciously asking yourself, but your body
Right.
and unconscious was going, hey,
Right. This is messed up. You haven't done this before. Oh, yeah.
so I think that, appreciate you saying that. The other thing that I want to, this is my PSA and my soapbox for a second, if you don't mind. When people do these processes, no matter what you call them, what the FBI calls it, with the chaplain, you call them as schisms in our area and probably in the rest of the United States and Canada. Never mandate therapy, never mandate system, never mandate peer support. Why? Because that's a great way for people to shut it down and get worse in the long term. Sorry, I had to put in my PSA
Yeah.
because too many people make it mandatory.
You know what? One thing that Ben learned from talking to other TLs who'd been in deadly force encounters was so we had two guys who pulled the trigger, and here's all the legal issues that we definitely have pounded into us. Like, don't say anything to anybody. Like, you just shot. Like, this agent could be called in the stand against you. We knew it was going to be a good shoot, so there was no question there, which probably lowered the threat level. But what Ben learned was guys who get in shootings are now ostracized. Hey, man, don't talk to him. Don't talk to him because you don't want to screw him later. But so Ben learns like, well, we got to take care of mental health here. So he goes, you're going to shadow him. You're going to shadow him, and just be around him. Just be around him. Hey, do you need anything? Whatever it might be, to make sure they're okay. You're watching him if like, oh, is he breaking down?
Right.
Which was not expected, but you don't know. It now we're just making sure there's a buddy, a swim buddy with him, and that was smart. I think that made such a difference. And now I'm going to one of my friends who had pulled the trigger, saying, "Hey, you should definitely call your wife." He's like, "Yeah, I didn't even think of that." Like, you're so in the moment to say, "This is going to hit the news. I want you to hear it here. This happened. That was me. I'm safe. I'm doing well. I'm with good people. Let's make sure that we're setting ourselves up for the next few days."
And let's not forget one important thing too is again, not having been there, but I've been there in different types of situation. Let's not play down the fog that kicks in your mind
Yeah.
because you got to do everything legally what needs to be done in order to, whatever, if it ever goes to grand jury and shit. But more importantly, your mind is going into a fog because that was such a difficult situation to be in. And people are like, "Oh no, I was sharp." I'm like, "No, you're sharp because you remember it differently."
Yeah. The way you want to.
Right. But I think the fog is important to talk about because some guys have come in and told me that too. And they're like, I was in a fog after that. I'm like, yeah, that's normal. Why?
Yeah.
'Cause your brain, like if you took someone's life, your brain doesn't want to really think about that. That's not fun to think about. So your brain's going, let's talk about anything but, and let's put you in a fog because that's a good, and I know people say it's crazy, but it's a good self-preservation thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that you talked about some of the harder stuff that you faced. I want to shift gears to something maybe we'll use the word crazy or maybe like a unique or whatever, because, I'm a mental health guy. I can't say crazy. I'm kidding. I don't care. But yeah, tell me a little bit about crazy stuff that you saw working the FBI, because that always is fun for people to hear.
Oh, so when you have a search warrant and you have access to every corner of someone's house unexpected and go through their phones, computers fully, there's so much you learn. And I got to see, and it was always sex. I mean, it's always sex related stuff. It's so the craziest thing that I ever encountered was I'll give you the broad view of this, and then you'll go, what the hell was the intimate view of this? We had a search warrant on a guy trading in child pornography. Hit the door, go through. I'm searching his closet. Meanwhile, triangulated is guys are going through his phones, and he's sitting down for an interview. And understanding comes together at the same time as I'm going through a backpack, and there's rags, tape, plastic bags, rope. I'm like, this is this guy's go bag. This is where he takes to offend. And then I pull out a pair of men's severely soiled underwear. And I thought, oh, okay, I know what that is. Guys are going through his phone and go, oh my gosh. And then he makes confession that he is someone who receives pleasure from eating shit. And I mean, I know dogs do it. I don't know why. But like later, I'm talking to him and he's like, yeah, man, I got into pornography when I was 12 and I just kept going deeper and deeper down the path until I needed something more debased to find pleasure. And I start thinking that, growing up in a Christian home where I didn't have any of that, then I learned later, which I'm sure 12 is the average age now where boys are exposed to pornography. So I mean, so there was a latent chromosome trigger brain cell that when he got that, it popped off like a puffball mushroom and now drove him to where others just go, yeah, I like that. That's fun. I'll go back to that occasionally. It drove him to a very, very dark place. So like there's stuff that you see where you go, I get why this is not out in the open. I get why this is hidden under so much in your closet.
Just a quick break. Guys, I'm going to talk about a new product that I really like. I actually bought one of their hoodies. It was amazing, and I really enjoyed wearing it. This episode is going to be supported by Deemed Fit. Deemed Fit is a first responder-owned activewear and leisure brand. And one thing that I genuinely like about them is that they support different causes. I actually gave a few people I know who work with first responders or nonprofits their name to Deemed Fit, and I know they're talking to them. They do a lot of initiatives and collections that are based on mental health for first responders. And if you go there right now and you buy anything, including the mental health support stuff, use the code RDA15. That's right, RDA15 to get 15% off on any products that you get. Again, it's called RDA15. Go to deemedfit.com, DEEMEDFIT.com, and enjoy 15% off at checkout to save. Now, right back to the episode. Well, sex is the one thing that people like to hide about the most. Yet that's what's the stat about internet sex sites? It's like 10% of the internet or something crazy like that.
Yeah, I assume so. The rest is Podmatch.
That we should put him in. I'll put him down as a sponsor and tell them they owe us some money.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know if we like following a story about a guy eating poop, but yeah.
Hey, you don't choose the placement. We do. Thank you very much.
That's right. That's right.
One of the things that I find also fascinating is, there's always these jokes about interagency interfighting. I know it wasn't in some of the stuff we talked about prior to the interview. Just wanted to throw that out because you talk about, the fun, the crazy stuff that happens. But it's also like I think that sometimes this perception that Homeland Security does not do what the FBI does and doesn't do what the CIA does and what doesn't NSA does and all that shit. But it's always like I don't know what it is, but they always tend to work together anyway.
Yeah, yeah, and there's always crossovers. So I've been in cases. It's mainly like DEA and FBI dope agents where you butt heads on stuff. So there's going to be occasions, but by and large, I mean, especially at the agent to agent, the cop level, guys are just like, hey man, whatever it takes to take this guy down. Like if we arrest him on your paper, I'm getting stats. My boss is glad. Like it doesn't matter. So we would find ways to, I mean, almost always just support one another. FBI knows that local police, we can't do our job without them. So that image of us coming in, kicking them off and saying we're taking charge doesn't happen. Like we're trying to find ways to like, hey, let's hold hands as we cross the finish line. We're going to do this. And one instance we had, I'd been working with IRS in the past, and so I had a good reputation with them working financial cases. So going into national security, they came to me and said, hey, would you mind being the affiant on an affidavit for a search warrant? I said, no problem. They said, we've got this case, but we don't want to look bad. So we'd like to put the FBI's name on it so it doesn't look so bad. And I said, easy. So amazing case where this blue collar guy in Toledo area falls down steps and dies after he had revealed to his tenants in this duplex that as a blue collar guy, he'd been socking his money away. He had $2 million saved. So he liked to drink. So homicide charges come, but that gets brushed away because they can't prove anything. And then out comes the will, which says, I leave all my money to my great tenants. And what had happened is these tenants, it was a boyfriend, girlfriend, and dude's father, tenant's father, hired a lawyer to mock up a will and backdate it to say this. So the reason the IRS found out about this is because the dad wasn't getting enough cut. And so he's pissed off and went to the IRS, which is crazy to me because I don't know why you don't go to the FBI. Like, why is that an IRS thing? But he went to them. They work up the case, and now these people are in jail. But on the first search warrant, the IRS says, we forgot to pick up his ashes, his remains. So the ashes were in a literal Chinese takeout box. The defense is going to say, hey, he loved us, and we're going to show that's not how you respect someone that you had a great relationship with. So we get a search warrant, go back in. I get some of our evidence response guys, help them out, find the ashes and get what they need. But since this was a significant case and about to go to trial, I knew the U.S. attorneys were going to stop by. And so I had prepared. And so when they rolled up, I had previously gone to my fireplace and scooped some ashes out into an Amazon box. And then I cut a hole in the corner. And so when they rolled up to say, how's it going, guys? I can't come out of the garage and I hold the box over my head and I say, I found it, with ashes just spewing everywhere, and they'd go white. And that's how you work together federally.
Well, I would have loved to be there for that one. I would have, I don't know if I would have been like as much as like scared or like, oh my God, what the hell's going on versus like, oh my God, what the hell are you doing?
I debated on this one because I like playing pranks, but I'm like, I don't know, man. Is this too far? And then, screw it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
I'm sorry for my another little thing that I love to talk about is for the type of jobs that you guys have, and even mine to a certain extent, dark humor is what makes us survive.
Yes.
People don't understand that. They're like, oh, that's someone's remains and you made fun. No, we didn't. It's just we need to survive the moment. Sometimes we got to do that.
These guys killed someone and then tried to steal from his family. So I don't want to sell it, but that's traumatic to have to deal with that. Like those things add up. And yes, I was talking to a guy who's a firefighter, and he said they brought in a therapist to observe every shift. And he said they came to our shift and later said, you guys employ way too much dark humor and that needs to stop. And I was just shocked. I'm like, no, what do you, okay, all right, I guess we'll just self-harm then. Like, how are you supposed to get through things without, you know, telling stories and laughing about it? This is how agents deal with that. You tell stories of near-death experiences and everybody laughs. You're like, hey, remember that time we almost all died, but then we didn't. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, yes. And that's how you deal with it. You have to laugh. You're like, this is a survivor story. We got through.
And that's why I think it is so important that people don't understand that dark humor will make us survive. If
Yeah.
you stop laughing about your shit, that's more scary to me
Yeah.
than someone who's laughing at really dark stuff. But that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Just keep it quiet. Make sure the public doesn't hear because it looks bad. They just won't understand.
You know, how many times do I get to see the guy after he shuts down and doesn't make jokes anymore and he's just there to do his job, and those guys are more scary about, you know, particularly, and again, I'm not trying to put anything in particular, anyone in particular, but suicide's more concerning to me when
Yeah.
you don't have dark humor. When I can make a dark joke and you laugh, I'm like, all right, he's not that far off. And I know the general population would be like, that's absolutely like bad. I'm like, you all do it when the doors are closed, so shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just my 2 cents on that.
Absolutely.
Let's shift gears because, you know, one of the traditions I started with my last guest, and then I'm going to go with you, is what question should I ask my next guest? So good news is you get to figure out the next question. But you get the first question, which was like, oh my God, this is starting way too fucking deep. And the question was, what is your why? Why, you know, everything in your life and currently more particularly, because that's what I'm really interested in.
Yeah. So my oldest kid graduated college a few years ago from the University of Michigan, and they have a series of speakers. One was one of the student leaders, and he said, among other things, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to be someone who changes the world. And that struck me because no, you're not. And I don't mean to be I don't mean to be oppositional. I wouldn't say it to the kid, but no, you're not. And no, you shouldn't. Because people, if you think back, and this might be a great book idea. Here we go. If you go back and look at the people who actually have changed the world, and let's say there's 100 of them, those people ruin their families. You cannot change the world without abandoning everything else. And so, unless you're a single guy, single woman, you know, orphaned, no sisters, brothers, if you set out to change the world, you have abandoned the number one most important thing in your life, what you should be protecting and trying to nurture, and that's family. So I'll say this. My why is it starts with my family, broadens to, you know, beyond my family. Now we have coworkers. Yep, I care and I protect and now I'm doing great things. Like if I've gone beyond my family and I'm bringing benefit to my coworkers, now I'm becoming more noble. And if I can impact my community, then that is so much beyond what is expected. You want me to get into the world? No. Run for politics? So, oh, I can be a governor? Okay. Now you've abandoned your family. You put them second. So my why is taking care of that concentric circle that only goes so big.
It's funny because right before we started recording, we talked about the courage to be disliked. That's one of the messages, actually, because setting out to change the world will never occur.
Yeah.
And because if you change the world, you're also changing your microcosm.
Mm-hmm.
And is that more important than changing the world?
Yeah, you better have the cure for cancer or something that, you know, I don't care if great job, Steve Jobs, you know, thanks for my iPhone and your kid hates you. That's not enough. In my book, that's not enough to have a cool iPad to say, well, my family is going to be ruined. So That's my why. Take care of the family.
I was at a graduation not too long ago, and the person said, when you're tired, just keep on pushing through. And I'm like, that's terrible. I'm like, oh, you're a high school kid. I'm not going to discourage you. Yeah, sure. Well, go ahead. But it ain't going to work.
Yeah. If you're tired, amphetamines.
That's what I do. That and a little cocaine. But anyway, that's just to make my heart rate to go to 170. Oh, wait, that was you.
Yeah.
How about you give me, for my next guess, what is the question I should ask them?
Okay. So are you dealing mainly with first responders then?
99.9% of the time.
Okay. So this is a question I often, if like, hey, there's a lull in the conversation. What's the smelliest place you've ever been? So I'm coming down from what is your why? Because like anybody who's been in houses, paramedics, cops, FBI agents, you've got a list in your head of like you just get done with a search warrant, and you go, dude, that was the third worst. Like you'll say that was top 10 worst, not worst, but top 10 worst.
Because I used to do co-response with the police. As soon
Mhm.
as you said that, I'm like, all right, I got 3, 4. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Dude, there's ones where you're like, yeah, I remember when I had to throw away my gloves afterwards. Yeah, yep, yep. Oh no, there was a time where two guys just couldn't make it. Like they couldn't go in that room. Or, dude, we've been so many houses where you go, like, we're looking in the corner and going, I can't see in the closet, but I'm not going in there. Like either that or I'm spending the day getting dog shit out of the lugs of my boots, I'm we're going to call that room clear.
Well, I joke around is there's one time, I'll save the details, but I got home and we have a mud room. I took
Mm,
all my clothes, walked out in my underwear to put it in the garbage right
yep,
away.
yep,
And I'm
yep.
like, fuck, I'm a civilian. I can't even charge for a uniform.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
So anyway, that's why
Yeah.
when you said that, I'm like, that's probably the worst. But
Oh,
anyway,
the number of times we'd hit breakfast after a search at like a pedophile's house, and I was sitting next to a task force officer, and she, like many people do, puts her napkin on her lap, and I go, "Hey, Janet, you gonna wipe your mouth with that napkin that's on your pants that was in that house we came from?" She's like, "I'm gonna get another napkin. Like, you need a separate. This is for the pants. This one's for the mouth."
well, and I'm going to bring that up. I'm 100% sure people will have great stories on that.
Yes.
But before we go, I need to know more about Irreverent because this looks like a great book. Would love to share it with my audience. So tell me a little bit about it.
It's a space love story. Now, I wrote a memoir of my time going from a Baptist pastor to spending 24 years in the FBI. It's called Irreverent: From Saving Souls to Chasing Sinners in the FBI. Comes out in October. And for me, I look back, I when I was accepted in the FBI, I was just looking in my library to a book on the history of the FBI I bought before I got in because I was amazed. Like this, what? I get to do this. This is awesome. And even though there are plenty of frustrating and aggravating times, boring times in the bureau, if you go through and you pull this out and go, let me tell you the condensed version of this, that's amazing. Here's the next one. Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh, here's this. And I always had that fascination, even in the FBI, of I really got to do this. Who would have thought? So, I mean, it's a story of what anybody might be able to do. And if I pull out my phone and called up a buddy and said, hey, tell me an amazing story, he'd go, all right. And there you go. Because everyone has one. So I was just a regular FBI agent, 24 years. I didn't move up and didn't do special things because being a field agent was awesome. Being on SWAT was all I wanted. This is enough. This is what's fulfilling. So I do, here's a case, here's a case. And then I finish every chapter with an after action review where I go in and say, this is why this worked. This is how we almost screwed it up. Here's a little bit more of that story or another one that's like it to just kind of add into it. And it's all throughout of how this runs. Then my wife finishes with the penultimate chapter saying this is what it was like for a pastor's wife to now transition to being an FBI agent's wife. And I do an after action of what she had to say of, yeah, that was my perspective on, what she dealt with too. So wife went from, those first years of something completely new to texting me in Chicago, let me know when you're safe, to years later, I've been doing SWAT for a long time. And I say, hey, we got an operation coming up on Tuesday. She says, okay, I'll put it on the calendar. And I go, well, the guy's kind of dangerous. She's like, yeah. He told an informant he wouldn't be taken alive. And she's like, I told you I'd put it in the calendar. What do you want me to do?
Right.
And so, so this is how she changed too, of like, I'm so worried you're going to be killed, to comes home every time. This guy knows what he's doing. Everything's casual.
All right. Well, I guess we'll have takeout on that day instead of making food.
Yep.
No. So you said it's coming out in October?
Coming out in October. My wife's company that had been promoting authors for 14 years. Recently, they got to put their heads together and say, well, why are we pushing these authors to hybrid publishers? We could publish, let's do that ourselves. So I am the third book that will be published. The book's right now still in the hands of the FBI to review and make sure I don't share state secrets, which I don't. But I do tell a lot of other things. Much like we got to share here, as you asked me something crazy, I have an entire chapter on how I've made men shit themselves. So I don't know if that sells more books, but I'm going to promote that anyway.
Well, I think that it will, like with my crowd anyway. Like, oh shit, really? Guys, I want to hear those stories.
Awesome.
They want to replicate it as much as they can. So
absolutely.
So is it available on pre-sale yet?
Not yet. So, I mean, we haven't even gotten it back. The company, Weaving Influence Publishers, is like, hey, let's not typeset until we get that okay. I'm letting them know, like, the Bureau's going to okay it. There's nothing in there that's off. But for pre-sale, when that time comes, and if folks want to follow along of the progress, they can go to my website, which is preacher2breacher.com.
Preacher2breacher.com. I will put that in the show notes, and when this comes out, hopefully maybe you'll even have a pre-sale thing, and I will definitely make sure to link that too. I always enjoy talking to people, but one of the things that I hope I can say that people will know on listening to this is I love one hell of a good conversation. This was a great conversation. So thank you. I really appreciate it. I don't do well with people who just want to get their shit out and in a certain way. So really appreciate your conversation.
Absolutely. And I've enjoyed so many of the shows I've been on, but the guys who know, that's nice. Like, when I can go, like when I say, have your guys tell the stinkiest place they've been in,
right away. I had that's 3 or 4 right away in my head.
You're like, that's not a weird question. That's a legitimate question. So I like that. Thanks.
So, well, I really appreciate your time, and can't wait for your book to come out, and I will definitely be reading it, and I hope my listeners will go listen to it. And thank you, Eric.
Thanks so much, Steve.
And I will say to my audience, this is always the takeaway from Dr. Dre, and hope you join us for the next episode. So talk to you later.
Please like, subscribe, and follow this podcast on your favorite platform. A glowing review is always helpful. And as a reminder, this podcast is for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. If you're struggling with a mental health or substance abuse issue, please reach out to a professional counselor for consultation. If you are in a mental health crisis, call 988 for assistance. This number is available in the United States and Canada.